Okay. Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live stream video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on the screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, staff will ask for your name and item number that you wish to address and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided for you to call back to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, the Secretary Treasurer will unmute you when it is your time to speak. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for a presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make your presentation. All remarks and questions will be directed to the chair. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties and answer any questions for the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly with the proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then finally be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the Ontario Land Tribunal for giving any subsequent notice of appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent applications for the applicant, agent, and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the last date to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have one regret this evening, Ms. Judy Murray. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? Okay, I see none. At this time, I will be taking requests for deferrals or withdrawal of application. Madam Secretary Treasurer, you let me know.
Okay, if someone's wanting to defer their application, can they please raise their hand? Okay, I've moved Mr. Goral into the meeting.
Yes. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we do. Do you have the capacity to turn your camera on?
Let me see here. There. It's on now?
Yes, we see you. Go ahead, Mr. Goral.
So good afternoon, committee and panel members. we'd like to defer the application due to some resistance against planning on our proposal. So we're going to work with them and come back to you guys.
Mr. Rao, what application are you seeking a deferral for?
41 Glen Manor.
Okay, so CAV 077 of 2022 at 41 Glen Manor Drive. Very well. Committee members, always welcome for the applicant to work with town staff for their application. All those in favor? Okay, your application has been deferred. You'll see the secretary treasurer when you're ready for the next agenda that's available at the time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
I just, Ms. McHale, if you could just mention that what has happened with this application, because I believe there's a lot of people in attendance that would want to speak to this application.
Okay, so application CAV 41 of Glen Manor Drive at and it's application 077 of 2022. I will note on record that we do have a lot of emails in terms of opposition and people who have requested to attend. Just to let you know, because of your remarks and as well as town staff's remarks, the applicant has decided to go back and rework their application, come back with a more favorable application. Hopefully you'll be able to work with your neighbors, Mr. Gural, and address some of their concerns, as well as town staff. And for this reason, we've accepted his request for a deferral. So you will have an opportunity to see the new application and the new amendments to the plans in the next circulation, the same way that you were notified with this current application that's on our agenda tonight, and you'll have an opportunity then to weigh in. I hope that answers any underlying questions that any of the attendees may have.
Thank you for that. Because there was a lot of people, I wanted to make sure everybody understood it's not going to be heard, and it will be at a future meeting, and they will receive public circulation once again, as you stated. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you for that. Do we have anyone else that is seeking a deferral at this time? Please raise your hand so the secretary treasurer can invite you to the panel. Mr. Grau, you're still on speaker, so.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Heather, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
You're here for which application?
Yeah, so I have two this evening. With committee's approval, we would like to defer item number 8 at 1188 Cary Road, CAVA 082 for 2022. We're in receipt of planning's staff report. We see we have a little bit of work to do on a few of the variances in question, and we're going to look to make some adjustments along with the client and see if we can help this out a little bit.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Heather. Committee members, all those in support of a deferral for application CAV 082 of 2022 at 1188 Cary Road. Okay, your application has been deferred. You'll see the secretary treasurer when you're ready for the next available agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other applications that are seeking a deferral at this time? Please raise your hand and you will be invited in.
I don't see anybody else at this time.
Okay, very well. We have no consent applications, so we'll take the first matter on our agenda, which is CAV 075 of 2022 at 351 Allen Street. Again, it's CAV 075 of 2022 at 351 Allen Street. And I will note we do have one email of opposition from Ms. Debbie Kelsall, and who is the agent that is representing this application?
It's Mr. Scott Shedden. I thought I moved him in, so. There we go. He should be there now.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Perfect. And now we can see you. Go ahead, Mr. Shedden.
All right, good evening. Yeah, my name is Scott Shedden. I'm the agent for application 351 Allen Street. We're applying for a variance to do with coverage. We worked quite extensively with the planning department at the town to create, we had multiple variances originally. We worked with the town quite extensively to reduce it, to get it down to this one variance, and basically pulled things back so that it was more in keeping with the existing residential look and feel in the area. We also set back the foundation or footprint so that didn't impede as much on the existing neighbor to the east. Yeah, sorry, am I able to scroll these pages or?
Yes, just let them know which slide you want to go to next, and they'll move them.
Okay. Yeah, go to slide 2, please. Yeah, so the existing house is shown in the dotted line at the bottom and shown in the gray area. It's currently on an angle, as you can see on the property, and the existing garage, which is a detached garage, is impeding on the neighbor's property line. So basically we did a lot of work to create a house with an attached garage and basically pull everything in so that that setback on that south side is now within the bylaw. So it improves it that way. And then you'll see that we offset the footprint from the back so that it wasn't, really impeding on the neighboring lot. We scaled it back so that it got further as it went to make it more less invasive. And again, we scaled back the house to so that we only had to apply for the variance for the footprint. So as far as the opposition goes, I can speak to that. Pull up page 5, I believe it is 5, 6. So it's one more 6. Yeah. So the tree that is in question is the existing tree on the north property off McDonald Street, and we haven't started done an arborist report yet, but the radius of the canopy is shown on the north side. Could you go to 7, please, as well? Yeah, so I circled it. So the canopy of the current house, or excuse me, canopy of the tree is currently around the existing house. We did meet with the neighbor that had the opposition, Debbie. We also asked our arborist that we'll be hiring to do the arborist report for the project as part of the application process to have a look at the tree. We spoke to Debbie about her concerns. We said we would look after things. She was worried about the fence being damaged, about this tree being, damaged. The owner shares the same concerns and assured her that we would look after it during the construction process, and she was quite satisfied by that. We also asked our arborist to go by, and they didn't view that tree to be a large issue, so to speak. We could manage it, and again, more will come out in the arborist report as part of the application process.
Very well, thank you. If you have Any questions from the committee members to Mr. Shedden at this time? Okay, I see none. I'm glad that you reached out to Ms. Kelsall. Is she in attendance today? Has anyone raised their hand to speak to this matter, Ms. Secretary Treasurer?
I don't show her in the meeting, and no one has raised their hand.
Okay, if there are no questions and there are no further items of clarification, we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as noting that the town staff report is in support of the application. Also, having taken into account the comments that have been presented this evening by the applicant's agent, noting that there were no oral objections in this evening's presentation. I do note that there was one written submission in objection to the application that the applicant's agent has noted that they have addressed the concerns of that citizen with them. I am prepared to make a motion in favor of the application as applied for. I'd like to thank the applicant for taking note of reducing the massing of the building, of the home, with regards to accommodating the variance that they're requesting, as well as their agent being in touch with the neighbor that had an objection. I find that it is minor in nature and does meet the four tests of the Planning Act. I would like to include the following conditions with the application. And just give me 1 sec while I pull those up. Sorry. In front of me. It's the joys of working off 2 computers here. That the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated April 7th, 2022, and elevation drawings dated February 16th, 2022. And the second condition, our standard one, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Ms. McHale, I'm just going to speak. There were some late comers, and I just want to again repeat that application at CAVA 0772022 at 41 Glen Manor Drive has been deferred, so the application is not being heard tonight. It will be at a future Committee of Adjustment meeting, at which time again there will be the orange sign on the property, and then you'll receive your public notification again. It's just some people, I believe, came late to the meeting and may have missed it initially. And I just wanted to repeat that 41 Glen Manor Drive will not be heard this evening. Thank you.
Madam Secretary Treasurer, as well as 1188 Cary Road, just in case.
Along with 11, you're right. I just see lots of people for the Glen Manor, as well as minor variance 1188 Cary Road. That, in addition, has been deferred for this evening and will not be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Application CAV 076 of 2022 at 447 Tower Drive. Again, it's application CAV 076 of 2022 at 447 Tower Drive. I'm showing a Lauren Pucci here.
Hi, my name is Lauren Pucci, and I'm here for 447 Tower Drive in Oakville.
Very well. Good evening.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So thank you for having me. I'm here to request a minor variance to increase the allowable residential floor area from 41% to 46.53%.
Is that it? Do you have a presentation or
That's it.
that's okay?
I'm new to this. So.
No problem. There is no interest from the public. I will mention though that if anyone is interested to speak to any application, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. You're designing a brand new two-story dwelling, as I see. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Ms. Pucci at this time from the members of the committee? I see none. We'll give it a minute in case anyone has signed in to speak to this application or ask questions, and then we can move the application to committee.
I see no one at this time.
Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the materials, including the written staff report and the applicant submission materials, I'm satisfied that the requested variance for the increase in residential floor area meets the four tests of the Act. The building is sensitively designed, incorporating the additional size within recessed upper floor and hidden behind roof forms that work to reduce the massing of the building. So I will put forward a motion of approval. That motion should be subject to two conditions, those being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated March 29, 2022, and elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good night. Okay. Application CAV 077 of 2022 at, oh no, this one has been deferred. Moving to the next one. Okay, application CAV 078 of 2258 Hillmount Drive. Again, it's CAV 078 of 2022 at 2258 Hillmount Drive. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. This is an application for the placement of a hot tub with a variance for a setback in the rear inside yard. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is a short presentation for this is property. I'm Khaled Kazalam. Me and my wife own this property since 2011. We did landscaping on the backyard in 2012. Next slide, please. We put a hot tub back then, which at that time, we just put it out 0.9 meter, which is 3 feet. We thought it was the allowed amount of setback to, between us and our neighbor. obviously this was was mistaken. But then the next slide, please. Then in the 2018, we actually built a deck and it was permitted by the city. This is a small piece of the drawing of the deck. It shows on the right side, the corner of the placement of the hot tub, and there are the posts, which are the black squares around it. These are big posts that holds the deck, which was built around the hot tub. So at that time, it wasn't brought to my attention that the setback is too small. Now, after that, again, next slide, please. In 2021, we applied for a permit to build a pool. The pool, as you can see in the back, is built. And it was brought to attention that the setback is not enough. Now, as you can see here, the hot tub is surrounded by these big posts and there is not enough room to move the hot tub. So my application is to ask for permission to keep the pool the hot tub where it is, because I do not have room to move it, unfortunately, and I did not have any problem with my neighbor in terms of noise or any kind of irritation or effect personally, and we've reached terms about that a long time ago. So I just want your permission to keep this hot tub where it is, and I don't have to move it anymore. I think there's another slide maybe, or that's it. Yeah, so this is the drawing of the pool. To the right side, it shows where it's located, and the hot tub is located next to it. And this is the permit that we applied, the drawing of the permit we applied for the pool in 2021. Again, maybe there is another slide to show more details. Or so that's in red, it just showing us where the hot tub needs to be moved. And yeah, unfortunately, I do not have room to move it. So I'm hoping it's permitted to be kept there. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Ghazala. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? Madam, Ms. McRae, has anyone called in to speak to this application?
There's no one at this time.
Very well. We'll take the matter into committee. Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move that this application be approved as applied for. I find it meets the tests of the Planning Act. I don't believe that there's any impact by a 0.6 meter difference in the location of this hot tub. I would note as well that there is no opposition from the neighboring community. And as this is an existing situation, would make that approval with no conditions.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, application CAV 079 of 2022 at 1394 Waverly Avenue. Again, this is application 079 of 2022 at 1394 Waverly Avenue. This is an application for a second story addition to an existing property. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. I have a Rob Bailey as the agent.
Yes, thank you. Robert Bailey, agent for the homeowner at 1394 Waverly. Through you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bailey, can you turn your camera on? Now we see an adorable picture of your dog.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, there we go. Sorry about that. And thank you about the dog. Through you, Madam Chair. Chair, committee members, staff, I would like to thank you for hearing this application this evening. We're asking for permission to exceed the allowable gross floor area to add additional floor space for an existing bedroom that is within the existing attic space above the garage. Through this process, we will not be adding any additional footprint or changing the facade of the building or adding any additional windows. We have reached out to a couple of the neighbors. We tried to reach out to a couple more, but weren't able to connect with them, and they are in full support of our application. I look forward to taking any questions from the committee that they may have at this time, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Are there any items of clarification or questions of Mr. Bailey at this time? Okay, Madam Secretary Treasurer, if there's no one that has called in for this application, we can take the matter into committee.
I see no one at this time.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, noting that the town's staff report is in favor of the application. Also, having taken into account the applicant's oral presentation this evening, noting that there were no oral objections or written objections to the application. Also noting that the variance I requested is not altering the exterior of the building in any way. I would like to move a motion in favor of the application as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act and that it is minor in nature. And I would like to move that motion with the following conditions. Sorry. Again, my apologies. Sorry, which?
79, 2020.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Condition number 1, that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated April 18th, 2022, and elevation drawings dated March 7th, 2022. And our second standard condition, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Have a good night.
Thank you, committee members, and have a good evening as well.
Okay, application CAV 080 of 2022 at 147 Sparling Court. Again, it's application CAV 080 of 2022 at 147 Sparling Court. If anyone is interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Heater.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chairman, committee members. Jason Heater, HDS Dwell, on behalf of my clients at 147 Sparling Court. I'm hoping with the permission from the committee to propose an amendment to this application in front of you, which would seek to remove variance number 2 altogether related to additional RFA. We were able to undertake a bit of a slice exercise through the width of the home and reduce the depth that allowed us to eliminate that additional 7 square meters of RFA. That removal also resulted in a reduction in variance number 3 for lot coverage. The current proposals for 28.4%. These reductions have dropped that number to 27.78%. If the committee is amenable to this modification, I think you might find the application now results in 2 variances that certainly become minor, and helps to completely remove a variance in which planning staff were unsupportive of. And I am hoping that it alters staff opinion with respect to the covered porch coverage variance. The drawings were deposited to the secretary treasurer for a matter of record keeping.
Those are extensive changes, so I think the committee members would probably like to see the plans. I understand your reasoning, and I'd like to hear from them, and I'd like to hear from town staff before we entertain such a notion. You're a veteran on this committee, so you know we don't like changing things on the spot.
By all means, I understand completely. It is one of those ones, I think if you were to look at the drawings, you would be very hard pressed to pick up visually the differences, but it did result in a reduction in depth, the complete removal of variance number 2, and then the reduction in the coverage variance as well. Variance related to the garage area did not alter whatsoever. It stayed the same.
Okay. Very well. These are the new plans that we're looking at?
I suspect they are, yes.
Okay. Members, you'll have to speak up because I can only see the plans and Mr. Heather. So if you do want further information, just speak out or ask for another slide to be shown so that you have all the information that you need before we can entertain this notion. Perhaps bring us back to panel, town staff, if we can just bring us back to panel for a moment. Mr. Talowski, did you have something to say?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's hard to assess without seeing it, so perhaps Mr. Heater could quickly take us through what the changes are between what we have and what I believe was on the screen.
Yeah, by all means. Yep. I don't know if we can bring up that. I guess I could do it through the site plan. Not sure if this is my presentation or is this the actual file of drawings that were submitted?
Yeah,
Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Yeah, if you can just, I'm just going to check with the, just one moment.
In the meantime,
but really, yeah, really and truly, I can show you. So the house did not move on the lot. The side yard setback, front yard setback stayed exactly the same. The front of the house stayed exactly the same. If you can imagine 2 3-inch slices vertically through the house that compressed it, a total of 6 inches, and then a small vertical slice out of the back covered porch that did the same. That was the extent of the revisions, and we were seeking to remove 7 square meters. It was a very very minor amount, but those minor slices did result in that additional square footage being removed from the house.
Okay. And Ms. Buckerfield, how do you feel about these amendments?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think at this point it would be in your hands in terms of whether you would accept his revised application, and then once he provides his presentation for explanation, I think that would likely help. I'm open to hearing his presentation and seeing how he feels that these variances meet the 4 tests.
Okay. And the rest of the committee members?
Madam Chair, my opinion is I usually like more time to review changes to an application. So, I mean, I'll decline to support this just because, you know, I think it would be different if we were all meeting within the chambers and he could point to things with his pointer and all the rest. But I'm looking at this diagram on my computer and I'm not comfortable with voting on a motion at this time with these changes. Although I do support the applicant and their agent that they have listen to what the town's comments were to address those. But I just find it, you know, a little difficult, you know, last minute here during our meeting to have that happen. So that's my opinion.
Okay. It's, yeah, I agree with you. It's difficult when we were in chambers. The applicant can provide new plans, and we can see them and really be able to visualize. I do understand that these changes are small. I'd like to hear from everybody. I'm personally leaning towards leaving it, if we do choose to accept those revisions with the presentation, and I would leave the plans to the satisfaction of the director of planning, but I'm not sure how everybody else feels about that. Mr. Heather, is there anything else that you can provide in terms of a side-by-side view, just to facilitate things? I don't want to take too much of the time that is already allocated to this application, and I do feel your desire not to defer it, but I'm at the hands of the committee as well.
I mean, it's not a hard line desire to not defer this. I've had discussions with, I understand. I wish I could mark up on the screen on a floor plan, because really what happens in the front rooms, they used to be 12'6", they are now 12'3" in depth. And the powder room used to be 5'9", and it's 5'3" in depth now. So those were the vertical slices that were taken out. Again, like I said, if I overlaid the plans and elevations from the original submission, they are identical. There are no window changes. There are no roof line changes. Nothing changes other than slivers came out of the depth of this house.
Madam Chair, I guess my perspective is like, I do understand what the agent is describing as far as what the changes are to the construction of this. You know, so I guess where I'm reserved, but I think that, you know, in the event, and I guess to the agent, like, typically if this was something that was being presented and you had those items, and I get it, we're on record here from what your comments are, but like in a presentation illustrating, like, okay, here was the plan for like what we had applied for, here is how we've changed that, and I understand, you know, the drawings up for change, but like in a bullet form showing that this is what has been done, then I would feel more comfortable. But in saying that, in the event that my other members are comfortable with, you know, moving forward, I would be okay with that, you know, providing that there's comments in the motion that it's subject to the approval of the director of planning, so that covers what my concerns are, you know, because what my comments are, we always are looking to work with applicants to, you know, revise in order to make things, you know, within what we're looking for. And I think in this case, the applicant has done that. And my concerns are just based on, you know, the fact that those couple of things are missing. And I know, as you mentioned as well, Madam Chair, like when we're in the chamber, like, you know, it's easier for them to throw things up. So in saying that, I am comfortable if, you know, we have a motion or something that is to the satisfaction of the Director of the Planning Act. Sorry.
Thank you. Would staff just bring us back into panel so we can all see each other? Very well. Okay, Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, is a little unusual and perhaps not Mr. Heater's finest hour in terms of preparation, but hate to penalize an applicant for trying to do the right thing if it is indeed minor, the changes that are being looked at. I do have one other question for Mr. Heater, though. With respect to variance number 3, could you give me the new variance again? And secondly, what is the actual square footage of the porches that are contributing to the coverage?
Yeah, I can give you that. The square footage. So in this case, and this would have been part of my presentation, if my presentation was available there, it will show the covered porch in question. It would be page 5, please. So that red element there is the covered porch in question. It is, bear with me for 1 second. It is 349 square feet, so 32 square meters. So in this instance, the dwelling, along with the front covered porch, and there's a small little projection of the second floor, those all add up to comply to the 25%. They're in fact under it by quite a bit. So the variance in question is really for that red area. And I would point out that it is sort of center mass on the home. It's 5.78 meters away from the north neighbor and upwards of 9.7 meters away from the southern neighbor.
Mr. Heather, the 27.78 is the new reduced
That's correct.
lot
Yeah, and
coverage.
I'm just going to get there. So the original variance was 28.4. The corrected variance is 27.78.
So is this presentation catered to the changes that you made?
These are corrected revisions, yes.
So do you want to just take us through your presentation? I didn't realize that you had catered your presentation to that.
I had just in the hopes that there may be an opportunity for me to present it. Yep.
So, okay, so then go ahead and do that then.
Yeah, so if you'll just back up 1 slide, please, page 4. So the first variance, this variance did not change whatsoever. It's for private garage floor area. We're seeking 52.97. This is a tandem depth situation. It's internal to the garage and does not contribute to the additional coverage variance that I'm seeking. The facade of this garage is a standard 2-car, 2-door arrangement. So no impacts to the neighboring dwellings on either side. And again, the house would comply in its current format in front of you. The amended format would comply with RFA, all setbacks, and all height. And then the next slide speaks again to the coverage variance. Dwelling, front covered porch, and the little overhang on the second all comply with the 25% allowable. The variance request is for the single-story open air covered porch on the rear of the home. Again, it's set back 5.79 and 9.71 meters from the neighboring dwellings. So really no visual impact or overlook condition is presented. And I think that really, that would be, the house provides ample setbacks. They're greater than bylaw required setbacks. It meets front yard. So again, it's really just this covered porch now that the RFA variance has been removed in the amended format.
Okay. Is that it? Can we go back to panel now? Yeah. Let's take this one step at a time. Are you satisfied with the presentation? It is that we can continue to move and make a motion about this application, or would you prefer to have drawings and we defer it? I'd like a show of hands for moving forward.
Yeah, sorry. And Madam Chair, my understanding is that the applicant's agent did submit drawings, correct?
Yes, they have submitted the drawings that we saw, although they are the changes are minute and we can't identify them on camera. Those were the ones that we did see, the new ones.
So if we were going to proceed and move a motion, we would need the information from those drawings, or just say as per the revised.
Yes, per the revised submitted as of today's date and to the I would recommend to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Fine to
Are
proceed.
you amendable to that, Ms. Buckerfield?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I am amenable to that.
Okay, very well. I note that there is a letter of support from a Ms. Veronica Kolaric. Is that an immediate neighbor?
It's the neighbor at 125 Sparling.
Okay.
And just for your own purposes, Madam Chair, I did date the drawings that were submitted to Secretary Treasurer this morning with a revision 05/17/22.
Okay.
And that was the entire package. I thought it may come up, so.
Okay, very well. So if we're comfortable with that, we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to take a crack at it? Okay, Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, as I said earlier, not normal, not what the committee generally likes to deal with. Having said that, this is a rare occurrence for Mr. Heater. This is not something that comes up often. And as I said, he's trying to accommodate the staff concerns. The variances are being reduced. So I don't see there being an impact at all, given that the variances are being reduced. And there's no opposition from the community to the larger plans, let alone the smaller ones. So, Madam Chair, I would move that the application as revised to delete variance number 2 and to change variance number 3 to permit the maximum lot coverage of 27.78%. And Mr. Heater will have to make another adjustment if his math is wrong. With the application revised that way, I would move that it be approved. I appreciate we saw the drawings on the screen, but I would prefer to leave the approval subject to the condition that development occur in general accordance with site plan elevation to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. I don't want to tie it to the small drawings that were on the screen. We'll leave that for the Director and Ms. Buckerfield to deal with, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, only to echo Mr. Talowski's commentary. Certainly not the preferred course of action in terms of the revisions, but great efforts made to address the concerns of staff and to address and alleviate some of my own concerns with the application. So I'll be supporting the motion on the floor.
Very well. Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
In addition, I do support the motion that Mr. Talowski has presented. And in the future, just part of my comments were there wasn't a presentation, and then halfway through there was. So
I think that was my mistake, because I really, throughout our entire service on this panel, we've definitely been against the changes on the fly. And I'm not a planner, but in hearing Mr. Heater talk and saying that the rooms were changed from 12.6 to a 12.3 depth and a 5.9 to a 5.3 depth, I kind of reasoned within my mind that, okay, in this instance, it would be okay, but let it be known and put on record that we do not accept changes on the fly with applications without looking at the plans and really, having that our focus. And just in case someone else comes up and says in another application that we've done it. No, we don't usually do that. And I echo your concerns, Mr. Flemington. So
right, but part of my point is then halfway through, then there was some slides for us to look at that did show what the changes were in the variances, where first making my comments that hadn't been presented. So
oh no, I understand. Yeah. I
of the most.
Yeah, because usually our procedural bylaws tell it, the way we do things is we decide whether we're going to hear it or not, and then,
Right.
you know, but in this instance, he had already planned it so that we could see it, but I wanted to see the formal plans versus so having said that, I think we're all in agreement that these changes are minor and that we can support the application and leave the decision in terms of the actual plans revision and tied to the approval to the satisfaction of the director of planning. And I think that will cover any aversion towards any changes that were made. All those in support of the motion? Okay, your application has been approved, and there's a small slap on the wrist. Do not do that again.
I will take it, and it's greatly appreciated, committee members, Madam Chairman. I also would like to thank Secretary Treasurer and Planning, Catherine, as well for working with me on this. I appreciate it. It's not normally how I do business, and but I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a good night.
You too.
Okay, we have application CEV 081 of 2022 at 448 Winston Road. Again, it's Mr. CEV 081 of 2022 at 448 Winston Road. If you'd like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095 and staff will be standing by to take your call. I do note that there are emails of opposition from 4 neighbors, and we'll let Mr. Kobasenko speak to the matter first, and then we'll take any interested parties' comments. Go ahead, Mr. Kobasenko.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Tom Kobasenko from Our Cool Blue Architects, representing our client at 448 Winston Road. We're seeking 2 variances this evening. One is to permit a larger private garage area, and the second one is to increase the residential floor area from 40% to 43.9%. This is a, I can have the next slide. So this is just a summary of the 2 variances that we're seeking. I understand we do have staff support for both of these. We have worked extensively with planning staff. Catherine and her colleagues probably sent it in at least 2 or 3 times and made revisions each time, eliminating 1 variance request for lot area coverage, as well as reducing our numbers on the other ones. And listening to the comments about massing and overall fitting into the neighborhoods, stepping back, second story, those kind of things. So we feel that we have done our best to design this home in accordance with the guidelines for stable residential neighborhoods in Oakville. And if I can have the next slide, just a quick picture of the existing conditions. This is a bungalow that we plan to replace. The neighborhood is in transition, as everybody is aware. Newer homes are popping up everywhere, and so we are also doing our part to be part of that transition. The owners did go around and discuss the application with most of the neighbors in the neighborhood. At the time of their discussions, they did not encounter any direct opposition verbally in their conversations. However, we did receive on Friday and today a few emails with some comments. So I can either, maybe I can finish my presentation first and then I can address some of those comments. If I can have the next slide, please. So this is RL3-0 zone. So the side yard setbacks are 1.2 meters on both sides. We're not asking for any side yard or front or backyard reduction, so we're complying with all the setbacks. We're not asking for any additional height. We're complying with the bylaws of right. And I want to just point out here that the dwelling on the second floor is being stepped back quite aggressively on the west side. We have two areas, both at the front of the house and at the back of the house, which are 1.5 story in height with a flat roof. And then above the garage, we're also notching away one corner there. The rear covered porch in the back is a single story element. So overall, this is not a box. This is a very well composed, in our opinion, building massing, which does step up and down and reduce the second floor massing quite effectively, we believe. Next slide, please. This is just the floor plans. There's nothing really worthwhile mentioning in the basement. That doesn't impact any of the variances. So second, main floor, please. Next slide. So here we can see the rear covered porch is it's within the allowable lot coverage area, so it doesn't really add to any of the. It's an as of right massing element in the back. Next slide, please. The second floor is what really matters to illustrate here, is that the second floor is stepped back, as I mentioned, and we have 2 areas front and back, or 3 areas which are 1 and 1.5 story elements. So that reduces the massing. Next slide, please. This can be illustrated here in the front elevation, where we have the front room and office, which is 1.5 stories in height, and then the rear, the roof lines that kind of retract as you go back, so it disappears from view from the street. And on the bottom elevation, we'll do the same thing. The area above the living room on the main floor is 1.5 stories, flat roof, and that transitions further down to a single story element at the back for the covered porch. Next slide. These are just the back elevations showing more of the how we've attempted to mitigate massing. Next slide. Okay, so that concludes our drawing presentation. Would you like me to speak to the comments now, or wait until we have some presentations from any opposing members?
Madam Secretary Treasurer, do we have anyone raised their hand who'd like to speak to this application?
Not at this time, but if I can ask the chair, can you just please read out the names of who we received opposition from? It was just,
sure. Some
of them were very late, and we don't usually take them the day of the meeting, but I just want people who are listening to be that they were received by the committee, if you wouldn't mind reading out their names.
Sure, we have Scott Messener, Glenn Torkelson, Penny Blythe, and L. Weinberg. If no one has raised their hand, maybe Mr. Kobasenko, for a matter of record, you can address those concerns that you've read in those letters. We were all aware of them. You can go ahead and do that.
Okay, I'll just keep it fairly brief. So Mr. Meisner's comments, he's not directly on the street. He's on the street behind, separated by a property in front. Very general in nature, questioning the size of the garage. Sort of implying or questioning whether this is going to be some kind of an illegal, unlicensed tandem garage, which is not. It's just a additional parking spot for the tandem garage. He was questioning the side yards and how will repairmen and service people access the backyard. So I just point out that we are, as of right bylaw, side yard. So this is nothing that's unusual in Oakville. There was no one particular complaint that I can point to, other than just a kind of a general email questioning of some of those elements. But I hope that through the presentation, if Mr. Meisner, if you're listening, you're happy with our responses. The next one was Mr. Glenn Dorkson. Sorry if I mispronounced that, at 451. This is actually an address that our clients did go to in person, and they did speak with a family member. I'm not sure if it was Mr. Glenn or someone else from the family, but they did not object at the time, and they said they had no issues in the verbal conversation. And the questions today that came through by email see here again, they're not specific in nature, other than just saying the house should be built as of right from what I can remember here from my notes. Again, our variance requests, we believe, are minor and they're supported by staff. They're not unusual in terms of what we're asking for. They have no impact on the streetscape, in our opinion. The next, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, the next two comments are from 462 and 457 Winston came via Ms. Penny Blythe. I believe she sent in the email on behalf of the owners at 457. However, the name of the resident at 457 that Ms. Penny Blythe provided is not correct. So I'm wondering whether the address was mixed up, because our client went to 457 as well, spoke with the neighbors, and there was no objection there. So perhaps the address was mislabeled. Nonetheless, I'll address the comments. The comments are the same for both. I believe that the neighbor had permission to use the same comments, the same email. And basically the residents, I believe, are misinterpreting the bylaw and our requests. Their written emails is stating that we are asking for a 10% increase in size. I'm presuming they mean residential floor area. That's not correct. We're asking for 3.9 from 40% to 43.9%. So it's a fairly minor variance, not a 10% increase by any means. So I think that's a misinterpretation. And the second comment is regarding the height. And again, they are pointing out that how can the committee allow a 9-meter height application? And I point out that that's an as of right height. We're not seeking any height increases. We are simply designing a home within the maximum height as per the bylaw. So both of those comments, I believe, are misguided. That's my interpretation of it. And I hope I address them.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Talowski or, sorry, of Mr. Kovacenko at this time from the committee members? Okay, I see none. If no one has called in, we can take the matter into committee. Ms. McRae, has anyone called in?
There's no one at this time.
Very well. All right. We'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the presentation and the written staff report, and I would note that the applicant has addressed a number of the concerns that were identified within the comment letters. I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act. On that basis, I will put forward a motion of approval, subject to 2 conditions. Those conditions being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated April 19th, 2021, and the elevation drawings dated April 8th, 2022. The second condition being that the approval expires in 2 years within 2 years of the date of the decision, if a building permit has not been issued. I would note that there were 5 letters of opposition received that have been largely addressed by the applicant.
I just
Is there a
need
discussion on this recommendation?
Sorry, Mr. Hardcastle said 2021. The site plan is dated April 19th, 2022. I just wanted that clarified because I have to go by what you say because, you know, it's out there.
April 19th, 2022 for the site plan and April 8th, 2022 for the elevations. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Application CAV 083 of 2022 at 265 Dunwoody Drive. Again, it's application CAV at 8083 of 2022 at 265 Dunwoody Drive. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Here speaking, this is Joel Tanner with the Office of Simple Design Studio. I'll go through the presentation fairly briefly. Next slide, please. This is the overall location mapping of 265 Dunwoody in southeast Oakville. Next slide, please. This is the existing single-family bungalow, which backs onto a ravine lot. Next slide, please. This is the proposed multi-tiered, two-story single-family dwelling that we're looking to put on said piece of property. Next slide, please. First variances in relation to the front yard setback. Existing is 13.54. We're proposing 8.67, which is very in keeping with the existing dwelling on the left and on the right-hand side. So we don't feel it's encroaching on the neighborhood in a negative way, and we feel it's in keeping with the environment. Next slide, please. Second variance is related to the overall garage. Again, from the front of the home, it is a two-car garage with additional storage in behind, which is driving that variance up to 70.26 versus the allowable 56. Next slide, please. Third variance is for an encroachment of the garage beyond the front wall. Calculated methodology we've come up with is 2.74 meters. Allowable is 1.5. Again, we are very dynamic with the overall architectural intent of the front of the facade of the home, that we don't feel that this negatively impacts the overall environment of the streetscape, and it's in keeping with the neighborhood and the foretest of the Planning Act. Next slide, please. There are 5 bullet points here, which the staff addressed in their comments. We have reviewed them in depth and we don't have any concerns with them. We are not looking to add any variances to the presentation this evening, and we are compelled to tackle these in a slight modification during our building permit application stage. Next slide, please. And overall, we feel that the home is very in keeping with Dunwoody Drive and what development has transpired on that streetscape over the last 10 to 20 years, and definitely open the door to any questions the committee has. Just want to let the committee know that the owners of the property, fantastic folks, lived in Oakville for years. They've canvassed the neighborhood and have received fairly positive feedback from neighbors. We don't seem to have anybody with any substantial concerns that are coming forward or approaching us with concerns regarding the proposal here at 265 Dunwoody. Thanks so much, folks.
Mr. Tanner, the page number 8, are those the variances that the town staff has alluded to being missed, but if those could be made in minor revisions to your plans?
Yeah, so page 8, we were originally looking to do a modification to have a U-shaped driveway. We have since removed that from the plan, which is going to remove any compliance issues when it comes to item number 1 that they developed. Item number 2 regarding dwelling depth, we have some clarity through the zoning staff, and we don't see any issues dealing with that element, and we don't need any variance associated. Dwelling height, it's a simple reduction of the stone pillar by a small amount, so we're not seeking any variance for that element. The window wells, we have done some diving into the overall zoning bylaw and the allowable encroachments, and we're not projecting beyond the allowable encroachments, so we're not seeking a variance on that element. And the last being the height of the pool, which will be confirmed with our grading engineer during the survey process, but we have done our own calculations of due diligence, and we feel that we're in compliance of that 1.5 meter calculation methodology, which therefore does not force us to have to go for variance. So we're very happy with the variances as stated in the presentation this evening, and those additional staff comments we're not concerned with and will be dealt with in the zoning and planning process.
Okay, very well. Any other questions or items of clarification on Mr. Tanner? Mr. Flemington, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just wanted to point out for the public that is viewing the presentation this evening, I don't think the variances that were numbered in the agent's presentation matched the variances on the application. So just so that they're not confused as to that.
I missed that. So, you mean the actual 3 variances that are in the application?
Like variance 3, I think, was actually variance number 2. So just know that when he was speaking to like variance number 1, variance number 2, variance number 3, they did not match what is on the application in order of those numbers. That's all.
Okay.
Still, there's still variances being requested. They just were in another order.
Yeah.
And if there's no other comments, let me know and I'll make.
Any further comments from Mr. Hardcastle and Mr. Towski at this time? I see none. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Reviewed the written submission from the applicant, as well as noting that the town's written staff report is in support of the application. Also, from the comments made by the applicant's agent this evening, I would like to note that there were no written or oral objections from the public. I am prepared to move a motion in favor of the application as applied for. I do want to note that it does meet all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and with the following conditions. 1, that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. And 2, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision. The building permit has not been issued.
Okay, very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you so much, committee. Have a great evening.
Good evening. Okay. Application CAV 180 of 2021, and it's deferred from November the 23rd of 2021 at 50 Bond Street. Again, this is CAV 180 of 2021, deferred from November the 23rd of 2021 at 50 Bond Street. We do have letters of support from 5 individuals. Who is the agent? It's Denise Baker.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Denise Baker, 1525 Cornwall Road here in Oakville, L6JOB2.
If there's anyone who would like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. Go ahead, Ms. Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you rightly noted, this application has been deferred from previous attendance here at the committee. This is an application for 3 variances, all of which are related to a front yard wraparound porch on the property, which you can see on the drawing that is on the page before you. Before we get into the details of the application, Madam Chair, one of the in the previous application that was before you, there were concerns expressed by transportation planning as it related to sight lines associated with the porch, because it's at the corner of Wilson Street and Bond Street. And so there were some concerns with the sight lines and whether or not the porch would have any impact on sight lines. Since that time, the client has retained Lee Consulting, a transportation consulting firm, who prepared a sightline analysis that was submitted to the town for their review, confirming that there would be no adverse impacts on the sightline associated with the with this porch. And so, Madam Chair, before we get started on the 4 tests, we do note that as a result of the submission of the Lee report, staff are now in full support of all 3 variances. And we also note, Madam Chair, for you that the application is supported by at least 6 families within the neighborhood who wrote in to express their support, and those support letters are contained within the package that is before you. To our knowledge, the committee has not received any objections to the proposal. Madam Chair, we are in agreement with the staff report with respect to the application, and we are in agreement with the proposed conditions with respect to the application. And just very quickly, obviously I'm in your hands to the extent of the presentation that you need. But Madam Chair, just very quickly, again, it's a veranda and a front porch. We submitted a very detailed planning letter with the application, with the revised application that went over the 4 tests, but just by way of highlight for the record, it is our submission that the 3 variances, both individually and collectively, meet all 4 of the tests set out in the Planning Act. And in addition, and as set out in our submission letter, the variances have regard for matters of provincial interest under Section 2 of the Planning Act, do not conflict with any of the policies within the growth plan, and are consistent with the policies in the PPS. Madam Chair, I'm entirely in your hands if you want me to go through the details of the 4 tests. I know you have it before you in our letter. I obviously don't want to read the letter to you, but if you would like any more information from me at all, I'm here to answer any questions or to give you more information as needed.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Baker. Are there any items or questions or items of clarification of Ms. Baker at this time for the covered porch and the uncovered platform with the variances for the side triangle and the flankage yard as well as the front yard? Okay, I see. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
No, Madam
Oh, okay.
They're not, but I just want to, thank the applicant for going through the process and with regards to the site triangle, getting the consultant to alleviate those concerns of what the town planning staff and the committee may have had with regards to that. And, from what's presented as well as the support from the neighbors, I don't really see any negative impacts of this application. So anyway, thank you.
Very well. I agree with that. Any other comments before we take the matter into committee? If no one has called in, I mean, we do have your letters of support on record from Mr. Chris Evans, Deanne Brannigan Evans, Tyron Borg and Craig Elliott, a Marshall Edinger, and a Keithan Lynn Matcom, and a Jordan Morelli. If there's no one interested to speak to this application, there are no further comments or questions of Ms. Baker, we can take the matter into committee.
There's no one at this time.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to move that this application be approved as applied for, finding it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. It's, as Mr. Flemington alluded to, the first time around, it's always difficult when issues of safety are raised. So I compliment the applicant for having a professional engineer look at it. I'm satisfied on the safety issue now, having a professional engineer's report being accepted by town transportation staff. With respect to the remaining variance, I don't see an impact and believe them to be largely due to the fact that we're dealing with an old dwelling and that would have predated the current zoning bylaw. I would note that there are 5 letters of support and nobody in opposition. I would make that approval subject to the covered porch and uncovered platform being built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated 10/25/21 and the elevation drawings dated 07/05/21, and that the approval expires if the building permit does not issue within 2 years.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Have a great evening.
Good night. We have minutes to confirm for May 3rd. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. And then we have motion for adjournment. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. We are adjourned at 8:25 p.m. Ms. McCrae, will you let us know when we are offline?